weddings were a little different in Jesus' time. I mean, we would never think we were supposed to sit at the head table, unless, of course, we were in the bridal party. But then, men and women sat separately at the wedding feast. Instead of the bridal party sitting at the head table, it was reserved for honored guests, the men with the highest status in that community. In modern terms, it would be like going to a banquet for your work, sitting at the table closest to where the speakers were going to be, and being asked to move because only the people on the program and special guests like the mayor and so on were supposed to sit there. Embarrassing. Better, Jesus said, to be humble. Sit at the farthest table, and then you'll be invited to take a more honored spot. I kind of like the farthest table, actually. Then if the speakers are really boring, nobody notices when I sneak out. That parable is more about humility than about being a good guest. If you think you are all that, you will be brought down. Better not to seek recognition than to demand more than you are due. I don't care that much about my status as pastor usually to make any demands most of the time. I'm happy just to be known as Maria and forego the title entirely. There are exceptions. Like when I go to events intended for pastors and it's assumed I'm the church secretary because I am female. Then I get really fussy about being accorded my proper title and recognition. But usually not so much. Further, Jesus says, don't invite people who will repay your hospitality by inviting you to a meal at their home. Instead, invite people who cannot repay you. The poor, the homeless, the sickly. Then, Jesus said, you'll receive your reward at the end when the just are resurrected. This is also kind of about humility. No bragging about what important people actually accepted your invitation to an event you're hosting, because, people do that. You might say to somebody, are you coming to my thing? Because this celebrity or otherwise important person is going to be there, and it's kind of special, so you should come too. You as the host get all kinds of status points for enticing that important person to your event. Also, you will get invited to other cool events in return. But if you invite only those who have no status and who can't possibly invite you to anything, who cannot in any way repay your hospitality, your soul benefits instead of your social standing. This is hospitality. According to an article in the Christian Post, the Disciples of Christ is on track to lose half its membership in the next 10 years. The writer, using statistics from the Office of the General Minister and President, said worship attendance fell 11%, going from 139,217 to about 124,000 in 2018. Baptisms declined by 13%, from approximately 4,300 in 2017 to 3,700 in 2018. He added a disclaimer that the denomination switched to an online reporting format, and as a result, a smaller number of congregations actually reported. The reported numbers represent a steep decline from the year 2000, when, according to the Association of Religion Data Archives, the Disciples had approximately 820,000 members. You had best believe this article ignited quite the firestorm on social media. A whole raft of people piped up to say, my church is growing. And others said, but wait, we just started all those new churches. What about 2020 vision? That's working. And others said, well, yeah, and so's everybody else losing members. This is not news. It's really not as bad as it's being presented. But yes, it is as bad as it sounds. The overall statistics for average church attendance for Catholic, mainline, and evangelical denominations nationwide shows something like 17.7% of the population actually shows up in church, although 40% of people say they attend regularly. This is the difference between between actual numbers provided by church bodies and what people tell pollsters on the telephone. Because people talking to pollsters on the telephone want to sound better than they are. This is called the halo effect. It really messes with the accuracy of statistics. I was on call as police chaplain the other week, and I was told by the family that they'd been unable to reach their own pastor, and so they asked the police department to bring a chaplain. When I spoke with their pastor a few days later, he'd never heard of them. This happens a lot. At Bringing Neighbors Together events, we ask attendees whether they attend church, and if so, which one. More often than not, the pastor of the church they say that they're part of never heard of them. And trust me, the churches in Selma are not so big that the pastors don't have a pretty good idea who shows up on Sundays, or Wednesdays, or Saturdays, or whenever. So we need to keep in mind that even if somebody tells us they belong to this church or that one, that might not mean they actually show up or feel part of that congregation. Oftentimes congregations will say, we must grow, and we want young families with children who can contribute financially to our budget and who will be involved in all the ministries of our church, especially boards and teams. There are two problems with this. One, young families with children typically are struggling to make ends meet and can't give all that much, and they have no spare time to give to the demands of the church beyond work and childcare. And two, this is exactly the opposite of what Jesus told the host at that dinner. Don't invite people who can return the favor or repay your hospitality in some way. Instead, invite those who can't. Invite young families with children and no money and no time. And high school students who come without their parents. And young adults, students, and young people who are just starting their careers. And homeless people. And people on fixed incomes. And anybody else who needs a church home, an actual family to be part of. Our mission as Christians is not to add to the bottom line of our budget. Our mission as Christians is to bring people to Christ, to help the lost find their way, to help the helpless. Our mission of Christians is to help those who did not have a home to find one, literally, yes, but especially spiritually. Our mission is to seek out those who, for whatever reason, have felt that they did not belong in their church or any church, and show them that they are indeed welcome in this place. I knew a nice young man who worked hard at his minimum wage job but had no place to live because he couldn't afford to pay rent, not on minimum wage. He had very few belongings and all his clothes were work clothes. I invited him frequently to come worship with us, and he always answered, I would, Pastor, but I can't come to church dressed like this. And no matter how hard I tried to convince him that his clothes did not matter, his mind was made up. He would not feel right coming into the house of God in dirty work clothes. You see, he thought of church as being like that head table Jesus was talking about, where all the most important people sat and where people like him were not welcome. He had no clue that church could be a family. He was not alone. A lot of people think of church as country club, as a place where their outward appearance and social status mattered. Several weeks ago, we had an event here where we asked questions like, what do you like best about First Christian Church? Overwhelmingly, the answers to that question included words like welcome, acceptance, inclusion, family, love, and it feels like home. September 15th, 2 weeks from today, is Back to Church Sunday. And while I understand that the primary focus of this day is to invite people who claim First Christian Church as their church home, but don't show up with a lot of regularity, I urge you to invite anyone who needs a home, a church home, a family who will welcome and accept and include them, even if they say they belong to another church, but mostly you see them staying home on Sunday mornings. Because in this place, at this table, in these seats, hospitality as Jesus defines it is the general rule. In this place, there is enough room, there is enough bread, there is enough love for everyone. Please stand and join me in singing In This Very Room.